embrace these methods and this methodology. Not to belabor this point, but we're all here, and it's a beautiful day, so allow me to just remind you of something. Josh Mandel's ethics report. It's probably all legal. I'm not suggesting there's anything in there that's not illegal or unethical. But in there, he provides the information that he received in-kind contributions from one Thea Shoemake, or Tia. I'm not sure how you pronounce that name, Thea or Tia. The same Tia Shoemake who is suing Kevin DeWine within the Ohio Elections Commission, claiming that the Ohio Republican Party misspent funds. So Josh Mandel, evidently the endorsed Republican, is embracing the very people who are suing Kevin DeWine. What's up is down and what's down is up, and I'm not sure we know who's in charge of the Republican Party quite now, right now. And we're taking advantage of that. And our activists are responding. They're knocking on more doors. They're gathering more information. We're not attending any rallies, screaming and shouting and holding up misspelled signs, but nonetheless, we are doing what needs to be done to be successful. Our activists are may be active in local community theater, but you don't see much of it at our events, as you do on the Republican side.
How do you suppose that Mike DeWine's not on the slate card that the GOP is now?
30 years Mike DeWine's been in public service, a Greene County prosecutor, lieutenant governor, member of Congress, a United States Senator. As David Pepper reminds us, because of this political over hyper-partisanship that's occurring, the Mike DeWines, the Cliff Heights, the Ross McGregors of the Republican Party are no longer acceptable, nor are they wanted. I would encourage Cliff Height from Finley to join us in the Democratic Party. He wouldn't have to fight through a primary to get elected to the legislature. Cliff Height and Ross McGregor have voted with Governor Strickland on a number of issues and have stood up for those who oftentimes don't have a voice in the State House. Unfortunately, their decisions have led to their demonization within the Republican Party. Now, in the case of Mike DeWine, he is busy at his concealed carry classes, trying to become something he has never been. And I suspect, like Rob Corbin and John Kasich, he's hoping by November that everyone forgets about his political past. The Tea Party has made it quite clear that they're not going to forget, and I'm going to be there to remind folks as well.
There's been some controversy in the primary on party switchers being required to sign a loyalty oath, as described. Do you have an opinion about Ohio's statute? I mean, should Ohio have tightly enforced party nominating processes, or should we move towards a more open primary where anybody can vote for whoever?
Right. Well, when you have a process where you have to declare your partisanship, it makes my job easier in that we can collect data and plan accordingly based on the data, because there is this process that one has to go through to become a Republican or Democrat. So from a party standpoint, it just makes the mechanism of running campaigns in November a bit easier, because we can track voters and do those kinds of things, have that conversation with voters that is needed. As a former member of the legislature, I always wondered why we had these kinds of loyalty oaths, because as we've all come to understand that it's really a piece of paper, and it's unenforceable, and I don't think we've ever seen a prosecutor or the past secretaries of state enforce this particular statute. I think that Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy will be eager to look at this as part of her duties. Perhaps Sandra O'Brien, if Sandra beats Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy in the general campaign, they'll look at this next January. But Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy will take this issue up.
So you don't think
I notice a slight laugh over there with Sandra O'Brien. Sandra O'Brien is a political giant killer. And while I would never describe John Husted as a giant, our internal polling shows that Sandra O'Brien is up by 7 points thus far. So I like watching that race and reminding folks about Sandra O'Brien every chance I can.
You said she's up 7 points
in our polling, yes.
In 2008, I don't know how this figures, but in 2008, I think you remember Rush Limbaugh kind of, created a campaign called, basically saying he's going to do mischief in the primaries, and encouraged Republicans to register in Democratic primaries to vote for, I'm assuming at the time, both for Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, and, kind of change the dynamic in the mix and everything. I know that was happening, or it was supposedly had happened in Pennsylvania, may have happened in Ohio, and several other states. That was what he was trying to do. Do you guys have any idea whether the folks who are shifting back, or what percentage of those folks, I mean, obviously we wouldn't know exactly, but any idea of what percentage of those folks were shifting back were people who were, may have been engaged, or do you have an idea of what the impact of that mischief campaign was?
Right. Now,
public mischief campaign was?
A couple of points to Mark's question. If Rush Limbaugh was doing that, we all heard that he was and listened to the reports, then he was aiding and abetting a violation of Ohio's campaign finance laws and should have been prosecuted by either a county prosecutor or through, the Secretary of State's office. Obviously, the Secretary of State felt that this was just a right-wing talking head pandering to his base and trying to gin up some interest. But now, 2 years on, we look back, and 71% of those who switched from Republican to Democrat have gone back to the Republican side of the aisle. 15,396 voters were registered Republicans prior to the 2008 primary, and historically so. It was not an anomaly, but you can track these voters, and you can see that they had voted in Republican primaries time and time and time again, and then you see this Democratic blip, and then a retreat back to their historic party roots. In the case of the offering that's been made, Gil, about Rush Limbaugh, perhaps I would say, but it really speaks to the necessity or lack thereof of a loyalty oath because it's unenforceable, because it's hard to question motive in the court of law when it comes to voters' intent.
So you would disagree with the requirement to have the form signed for party switching? I mean, the idea is to somehow enforce the integrity of the nominating process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously I would want to see that process intact, but I recognize that it's largely unenforceable and more of a tradition, and most voters have become accustomed to that here in Ohio, and therefore Democratic and Republican Party chairmen can use that information when we're making decisions. So I'd like to keep it intact because it makes our jobs more effective. We can be more effective at our job, but I recognize that it is a statute that's largely unenforceable.
So you think you should just be able to go in and ask
I'll
for any ballot?
allow Mary Ellen O'Shaughnessy to take it up with the legislature next year. I'm sure Speaker Budish and Secretary of State-elect O'Shaughnessy can work that out.
Take one more question.
It seems to me like
Really?
I remember back during that time, and it seems to me like maybe there was people who were involved with their party on the county level who were very involved at that point who did some switching. Did I not see? Did you guys remember anything? I think there were people who had ties with the party who switched. And do you know? Has anyone tracked any of that and seen anyone
Yeah, and it
switching back?
may have been the Republicans for Clinton kinds of groups, or Democrats for McCain kinds of groups. But if you look at the numbers, you can see there is retreat back to your historic party roots. In this case, I point out the Republicans, 71%. But in real numbers, it's negligible.
That there's no names attached
Right.
to it.
And Mark, to your point though, if you were to add up all of the numbers, regardless, it's still negligible when you look at the overall voter registration of the state. We've actually increased 100,000 in total. Now, if you look at, as Mark has done in past stories, that if you just examine those who have switched, it's like 21,000 to 4,000 or something like that. 21,000 going this way and 4,000 going this way, so you could draw some conclusion. Well, I would suggest you look at 4 million, 4.5, whatever the final number is of total registrants, and it's like 0.005% who made that decision. So I don't believe one can draw the conclusion that there's an enthusiasm gap on our side when you make such a narrow sampling. I prefer to use all of the independents and all of those Democrats and Republicans who decided to switch. And in that case, the numbers clearly fall on our side.